Welcome back to Square Off. In the dying hours of this year's legislative session, Republicans tried to cobble together a compromise with the state's largest teachers union. Here's what we know. The deal would have scrapped a ballot referral that could cripple the union in exchange for the union withdrawing its financial support for a citizens voucher initiative, gathering signatures right now to get on the ballot. The deal fell apart, and when morning broke, the ballot referral that could cripple the union was still in place, and a new Republican ballot referral containing a poison pill that would kill the Citizens Voucher initiative was on the ballot. We'll find out how that story ends in November, but in the meantime, the Arizona Education Association, the state's largest teachers union, finds itself in a very difficult spot, and that might not be the only union in trouble. Our politics panel is here to discuss. Democratic consultant Matt Grotsky of Matters of State Strategies, and Trey Terry, Goodyear City Council member and a conservative consultant. Welcome back to Square Off.
Thanks for having us.
I did invite the leader of the Arizona Education Association, Marisol Garcia, to join us today. She was not able to do that. We will try again in the future. So this ballot referral that affects the union is HCR 2040. Matt Grotsky, why would the union try to cut a deal with Republicans to can this referral?
Well, I think they were ultimately trying to bring solutions for Arizona voters, and Arizona voters by and large have made it very clear that they don't support this voucher program. They've said that since 2018, since it was rammed down people's throats in 2022, they've said the same thing. So I don't knock them for trying to get a deal done and try to work with a legislature controlled by Republicans, but you saw the ramifications of all this when it all fell apart, and now there's chaos and people are trying to make sense of it. So
let's dig into the deal just a little bit, because my understanding is this was about money. They would either have to fight if HCR 2040 is on the ballot, which it is, they're going to have to fight that. And they've also pledged to help the Citizens Initiative on vouchers. They'd be fighting a two-front war with their money. Do they have enough money to do that?
They've got the money, they've got the resources. The question is the willpower there from the people on the ground and the voters? And I think if you take a big zoom out approach on this, I think Republicans felt that they could go this route and that this could all happen because there haven't been electoral consequences for them every time they've tried this, right? And so I think from a political perspective, as Democrats and people that support education, where we need to go with this and say, look, if you're frustrated by the shenanigans of all of this, it's time to flip the legislature. Because time and time again, we've spun people up about it, people get upset, but the legislature makeup doesn't change, right? So if you want to change this stuff, change the legislature.
What about bad blood between the union, its own members who support the Citizens Initiative?
Yes, there's always bad blood, and that's going to have to work itself out, right? And that's going to be incumbent on these organizations and their partners. But yeah, it's not great. It's not what anybody really had on their bingo card for the way this was going to end. But you know, that's what happens, and it's chaos, and it's the legislature, and that's what voters are tired of, unfortunately.
Was it a worthwhile effort by Republicans to try to cut this deal?
I think so. Because you have both sides, both extremes kind of pulling at each other with ESAs. ESAs are very popular, especially out in the suburbs, especially in most of Arizona among parents. And when you're talking about some of the waste and abuse there, it's only a small segment of it. You could get into waste and abuse with public school districts. I've sat here before as we've talked about numbers as large as $80 million for domed football stadiums in public school districts. And if you get two sides together to try to strike a deal, there's always this idea of a grand bargain that's out there, and I think they should be talking. I think they should be talking because if something gets on the ballot that eliminates the ability for the AEA in the Constitution to use taxpayer resources to run their political operations, Arizona voters are going to come down one way on that, and I think it doesn't take a genius to guess which way they'll come down.
And specifically, 2040 would would not allow the school districts to collect dues for the unions, which is a real problem for any union. Speaking of any union, fire and police unions are concerned about this. Minutes before we took the set, we saw an opinion for Senate President Warren Peterson, who's behind this initiative, saying, don't worry, fire and police, this is okay. Is it okay?
So I heard from my fire union yesterday on this. They called me, I have to put on my city council member hat. There is a lot of concern there. And the problem comes from the language is used. It's the same language, basically any political subdivision of the state that is used in all sorts of other statutes that incorporate cities, counties, everything else, not just school districts. When this was put into law, a very similar law back in 2022, it included a specific carve-out mentioning that this is just for school districts. It does not include police, does not include fire. Ledge Council has come out saying, no, this is under the school district section. This should be, this only applies to school districts, but that should, it's a big concern. And I know the APA, police unions, fire, if they come out hard against this, that's going to be a problem. That's probably the only thing that could put this ballot referendum in trouble.
Peterson became an attorney like a week ago, right? So I would not trust his assessment of interpreting.
But this was, Ledge Council.
Sure, it was Ledge Council,
Yeah,
but it's his interpretation on Twitter, right? And I think ultimately this comes down to when you're moving too fast on pieces of legislation, when you're trying to ram things through, this is where mistakes happen, right? And it just goes to show the boneheadedness of this effort. So I think to your point, yeah, if they come out hard against it, could kill the thing, but let's see. Get out your popcorn.
But the general idea of it would be broadly popular. It would probably pass. That's why it was used as a bargaining chip to try to strike some sort of grand deal.
And that went well. We'll see.
On to Decision 2026. We saw Congressman Andy Biggs presenting himself as a bipartisan guy during this past week's Republican gubernatorial debate. Trey, Biggs' opponents at the debate didn't buy it. Or would voters buy it if Biggs makes the ballot in November?
Well, I think what voters will see is a candidate in Andy Biggs who was not there debating David Schweikert. He was there running against Katie Hobbs already. And as you mentioned, that pivot has seemingly begun, and I think that's quite smart. When Republicans have seen the last few cycles what happens when you don't pivot. When you just run to your base in the general election. We have 2 Democrat senators, we have a Democratic governor, we have a Democratic Secretary of State and Attorney General, I think for that very exact reason. So I'm excited to see that this may be Biggs' tact, and a lot of people in the state business community remember his time as Senate president, as a legislator, and he has a decent track record to run on there.
Can he pivot, given his complete and total embrace of Donald Trump?
No, I think he's insulting the intelligence of the Arizona voter. I get he has to pivot as a strategy, but people aren't going to forget January 6th. And the ad buys that are going to go out are certainly not going to let people forget that. I also think you talk about pivoting and appealing to voters. In this debate, I saw candidates that were attacking vote by mail again, a highly popular system in Arizona. North of 85% of Arizona voters use that system. It was invented by Republicans, and yet they're calling into question its veracity. And the last time they did this, 2022, you talk about all the statewide Dems that got elected, it did not go well for Republicans, particularly because they were skeptical of vote by mail. So look, I'm not going to get in their way. I think it's fine. Look, you just want to stand in line. But I just do think it's odd that the candidates for the Republican nomination for the governor keep going back to this same thing. It's just an odd strategy.
Well, I would just say at least they're debating. I mean, in 2022, the governor refused even a primary debate.
Well, and I'll say it was
the general election debate. Biggs is out there debating right now. Schweikert's out there debating right now. It would be something I think the voters would want to see in the fall.
They can debate all they want. I think Hobbs gets reelected again anyway, but we'll see.
Right, well, let's have the debate.
One end with Warren Peterson. He had an up and down week, triumphal visit to Washington after passing a budget that has all the Trump tax cuts in it. But then he returns to Phoenix and he goes after DACA recipients, basically saying he can't deport them as if he's attorney general, but he believes they should be deported. Smart move?
I don't know if that's exactly what he was saying. I think he's making clear DACA is deferred action. It is not like an official legal status. I know during the first Trump term, there was the offer there, to put DACA into law and at the same time have a border wall and make that another sort of grand bargain. That deal fell apart as well. But, there is not a legal status. It's just been deferred, so who knows what happens.
Okay, get 15 seconds, Matt.
Yeah. No, look, it's been unpopular to go after DACA for years. It's a bad strategy. Keep doing it, I guess.
All right, got it. Ended there. Trey Terry, Matt Grodzki, sorry. Thanks so much for joining us. That's our show for this week. Thanks very much to all of our guests. Thank you so much for joining us. See you back here next weekend for another round of Square Off.